Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course. My, what a week! What a week it has been. Welcome back, Jack Edwards from the Liverpool transfer room. Boy, oh boy, it has been a week. Usually guests don't appear twice in 1 week, but that is circumstances that got you on here twice. How's it going, Jack?
I'm doing pretty good. I mean, before we recorded, I was like, yeah, I told you about this last week. And I realized that was, in fact, was it Monday? It was Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
It was only a couple of days ago. But the cycle of news is remarkable. It's been hectic to follow. It's been hectic to be emotionally invested in, but and it's nowhere close to being done. The Super League isn't, but some sense of closure has been offered, which is good.
Okay, so so if you missed Monday's episode, if you haven't been following or you just don't care, um, what has been happening? So we talked about these 12 teams that form the Super League, 6 Premier League teams, 3 teams from Spain, and 3 teams from Italy. So you can go look it up and see who decided to compete in this juncture. But what's been the update has been the past since this league was announced, because it has taken a very interesting turn.
Yeah. So Saturday morning, Sunday, the rumors come out that the Super League is going to be announced very soon. Sunday night, it gets announced that there's going to be a Super League being formed, which would replace the Champions League in essence. And because of legal action from domestic leagues, would end the association with the Premier League,
Right.
La Liga, and Serie A in Italy. So then we see on Monday, Chelsea play Brighton. I believe it was Monday. No, it was Tuesday. In fact, sorry. Tuesday, Chelsea play Brighton, and fans create physical barriers so that buses can't get to the stadium. The Chelsea legend Petr Cech has to go outside until the fans dissipate so they can get the buses into the stadium. As the fans are protesting, saying like we want our club back, the news comes out that Chelsea are going to back out of the Super League. Then news comes out that Man City are going to back out of the Super League. Then Arsenal are going to back out. Barcelona are going to have a vote. Atletico Madrid were interested in leaving. Then it basically all falls apart. The Premier League sides all announced together that they were going to look to get out of the group to end their association with it. Ed Woodward, who was the chairman for Manchester United, announced that he was resigning at the end of the calendar year. Andrea Agnelli for Juventus is not resigning, but he was under intense pressure to do that. Florentino Perez for Real Madrid was under intense pressure to resign. Liverpool are facing a lot of pressure for their owners, Fenway Sports Group, to sell the club. Stan Kroenke, the owner of Arsenal Football Club, they're active protests right now for their match when they're about to play Everton. They want him to sell the club. It's went from Super League formed to Super League collapsed in literally less than 48 hours. Like I got groceries midday on Sunday, and those groceries are older than the Super League.
And by the way, if that name Stan Kroenke sounds familiar, that's the same guy that owns the LA Rams.
And Joel Glazer, the guy who owns Manchester United, also owns the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And Fenway Sports Group also owns the Boston Red Sox, as well as Roush Fenway Racing, the NASCAR team. So you think it's just as easy as these teams can get out, but not so fast. What do these teams have to deal with now?
Well, the issue is that they did I don't know if it's a mistake, if it's the correct thing to do, basically signed paperwork. They signed contracts with JP Morgan that they were going to do this league. They basically committed themselves to it. And JP Morgan are now kind of saying, well, what the hell? We were ready to commit 3.5 billion euros to this, and now you're just going to back out. So there's a lot of questions. Florentino Perez says that the league will happen in some capacity because he's the chairman of the Super League. He says that they signed a contract. This is going to happen somehow. So I think there's going to be discussions with UEFA. Maybe it just takes on a whole different format. Maybe it's like a summer competition. Maybe it's a every 4 years competition. Who knows? They obviously wanted a lot more matches. They wanted 18 group stage matches for each team, which would be a tripling of the current format, versus UEFA announced their new format, which was going to have 4 more group stage matches for the Champions League. So, I mean, it's almost a case of trash versus garbage, because both proposals are going to see players play more matches when they're already at risk of injury as the highest it's ever been, despite increases in medical advancements. They're playing more matches than they ever have. So the contracts they sign means they're either going to have to pay 300 million euros to get out of it, which is, I don't know how much money you have, Casey, but forking over 300 million euros is not something I'd be very happy to do, because I want to not do something, you know. So a lot of questions remain on whether or not the competition may still happen in some form, or whether or not a final will have to be paid. It's a mess in many different areas.
Right. So, how do you see this playing out? How can these teams back out? Do we really know?
If I knew, I would be a very, very rich man because I'd be a lawyer for one of these teams. Um, what I'd expect to happen, what makes the most sense, is they go to JP Morgan, they go to all these clubs, and they say, all right, we can't replace the Champions League. We can't replace the Premier League. Let's get some proposal together that is less egregious, that is less of a money grab. So things they have to do is open relegation, promotion relegation. I think it's a must. There has to be meritocracy. There has to be a consequence for losing and a reward for winning. I think there has to be less matches. And I think it can't conflict with current schedules, if they're to create a new competition. So that would require a lot of discussion with UEFA. They may have to actually sit them down and say, all right, guys, let's talk together about this. Let's figure something out. And it would just also require maybe just kind of forgetting this ever happened. But as things stand, that's not going to happen because Real Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus, AC Milan, I believe Atletico Madrid, and Inter Milan are all interested in still trying to make the competition happen. Now, how much money would they be given if they don't have the big 6 from the Premier League? Significantly less, because those are 6 of the biggest brands. Like 6. If I had to give you the 10 biggest brands in the world, it'd probably be the big 6: Bayern Munich, PSG, Barcelona, and Real Madrid, maybe Juventus. Make it 11, but you are losing some serious commercial muscle. So I really have no idea what to expect. And if I had to make any predictions and put any money on it, I would be almost guaranteed to lose money because we have seen how rapidly things turn around. And what we've seen more than anything is the power of the fans. Because the fans basically just kind of said, no, just you can't do that. It doesn't matter if you have the power as the owner. It doesn't matter if you have all the money as the owner. You're not going to do that to our football club. And all the power to them. They pulled that off. And they just kind of said, we're not going to let this happen. And it was remarkable to see. So whatever decision they make next has to have the fans in mind, because if they don't, they're just begging for more protests. They're begging for more. There's more life for Glazer out protests, for FSG out protests, for Stan Kroenke out protests. There's more life for those protests now than there ever has been. And if they make another slip up, they're just going to feed even more life to this beast. And as much as the fans may want them out, the owners have all the power. But if they're facing a lot of pressure, a lot of, threats almost, it could be a very tough situation for them.
Yeah. We've seen it before. I think people in this country, as we talked about before, this hasn't gotten the traction that I think it should, because, America has all these other sports. A lot of this, kind of goes under the wayside because there's this league called the NFL that is pretty popular. I don't know.
Also, I talked to my roommates they don't follow soccer, proper football at all.
Mm-hmm.
They don't follow it at all. And I was telling them about this, and they're like, "What's so bad about that?" It's just more games between big sides. They don't see the issue with no relegation. So for the American fan, all they see is just these pissed off British people. It's like, how is that different from any other Tuesday? Actually, it has gotten quite a lot of traction here in the United States in comparison to what I would have expected. There's been a lot of talk almost nationally about it. So it's been as much as they wanted the competition to be the new talking point for American fans, it became the death of the competition that's now the talking point for American fans.
Yeah, I think the James Corden rant, I think Monday night, kind of put a lot of people in perspective of, okay, oh geez, how bad is this? This is not. I knew this wasn't good because, well, first off, I was wondering what it was until you told me of how bad it's going to be. But well, if this Super League gets going, because the thing is that with these contracts and stuff, I don't see any of the Premier League teams, competing because,
Mhm.
what's going to happen. Um, how do you see this thing going?
I mean, I think that there has to be some discussion about a middle ground. The fans, I think, they have to sit the fans down and say, all right, um, look at this from our perspective. We screwed you over, yes, but all right, let's move on, please. I beg of you, stop protesting outside our stadium for the love of God. And then once they're done raging with their pitchforks, you could say, all right, we are either out 300 million euros or we figure out a way to make this work. How do we make this work? Um, and there will be a lot of fans who say, no, it can't work. But for those that can be reasoned with, you got to involve them in it somehow because, um, yeah, in England, almost no side is owned by a person who has a deep connection with the club, who was thinking about the integrity, the tradition, the values. They're thinking about how do we keep this club afloat? How do we keep our profits strong? Which there's a lot of reason for that to not be an incorrect perspective to have, because their whole job is to run the football club as best as they can. Um, and if they are not doing that properly, the club will die. I think back to Liverpool when Gillette and Hicks were the owners, more Americans, in the late or early 2010s. The club was on the border of administration, which if you know what that means, it means that they're just not going to have enough money and they're going to get shut down because they don't have the money to run the football club. Liverpool were going to shut down because of how poorly they were run. And these clubs were looking at the pandemic and they're trying to avoid that from ever happening again, ever having to worry about their finances and like, could this sport die as the way we know it? They went about it all the wrong way, but I think their intentions, as woefully they executed them, their intention was to protect the sport. Now, was it incredibly greedy? Was it thinking about themselves first, abandoning the traditions of the sport, not making it a sport, making it a business first? It's a business first, but they kind of waved that fact in the faces of the fans, and that was just a bit too insulting.
Yeah.
Involve the fans somehow, and maybe this can go somewhere. I have no idea where because again, I don't make these kinds of decisions. But that's what I have to imagine is going to have to happen.
Yeah. You just talk about them, right? Um, so, I don't know. I just think if once people start hearing the term Super League, they get scared. And, I just think that, these people just, you know, it means so much to them. And if they, try to, because the thing is, they're going to try to do this something like this again, and it's going to have the same result.
Yeah, I mean, this has been in the talks for decades, since the 90s. I mean, getting the biggest clubs in Europe, playing them in a big competition more often. It's just simple math. I mean, if you see match A gets you $20, match B gets you $10, you're gonna try and play match A until you milk it till it's bone dry. Um, and it's gonna naturally they're gonna try and figure out a way to make it happen. Now, I mean, there are only 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week, 365 days in a year. And it's a case of I just don't see where in the calendar you can fit these matches at the scale you want them to. Maybe if you made this like a 4 year competition, so it was like you had 18 group stage matches, well, you had those matches spread out over 2 years. You had some knockout stage matches every now and then. It would be far less profitable, but it would give you the more matches you desire and maybe it might actually fit in the calendar because as things stand, you're looking at players playing on a Saturday, a Tuesday, a Thursday, and then a Sunday. And physically, in 8 days, playing 4 matches on a consistent basis, it's just not physically acceptable. I mean, it's your body will refuse that at some point. Your mind will refuse that at some point, and players will wear out mentally and physically. So I have no idea where it's going to go next, but it's going to go somewhere. And I think what we've seen though is the first real opposition from fans to kind of just pulled the brakes on, and hopefully they don't just try and ram it through again. They try and actually work with the fans and work and create a better solution.
All right. Jack, thanks so much for coming on and explaining all this. And we'll have you on again if there's any more updates throughout this.
So basically, I'll see you in like 2 days. That's what you're saying there.
Yeah.